1, 2, 1, 2. Do you want to? No, I don't want to. So, could you all please let me know if the sound and the streaming quality is good enough? For those of you who are watching this on playback at a later date, please be patient for the first 45 seconds of the stream as I check that the sound and the video quality is good enough so that I know whether to continue or not. I'm in an unusual location at the moment, and the quality of the connection is pretty poor. So if you please let me know in the comments if you can hear me and see me okay. I might be able to clip this out afterwards. Shazzy Love says evening. Good evening. Michelle Choate says hello. Hello. Casey says all good, loud and clear. Thank you guys. Excellent. So the question, I asked everybody to ask a question on the YouTube community page for Richard Grannon, and we've got loads of good questions, and there's at least 6 of them that I will be answering. So I've gone for the top voted one first, which is how do I teach my children to have boundaries when I myself have none? So you should know I don't have children. I like small humans, generally speaking. And I was one once. I worked in the education system in the UK for 5 years. So I'm familiar to a degree with how kids operate and how they work. The age group that I was mainly focused on was adolescents, 12 to 18. I didn't like working with kids younger than that because they were far too enthusiastic, not moody, and not stroppy, and they wouldn't give me any grief, and I feed off conflict. So I much more enjoyed working with the stroppy adolescents. They gave me the worst kids, and I enjoyed that. But I learned a few things doing that. And one of the things that I learned was the power of modeling and the power of leading. So when you're working with children, your predominant power over them will be through modeling. It goes beyond their consciousness. And those of you who are familiar with me and my work, you know I'm a big fan of going beyond the conscious mind, because you go in somebody's conscious mind, the ego kicks in, and they're like, well, why should I do what you're saying? I don't want to do it like this. I want to do it my way. And I think I even said on a few streams, you end up with the counselors and the therapists will back me up with this. You can end up with sessions where you have 60 minutes, and the first 40 minutes is spent wrestling over who's in charge of the session, and you find yourself, well, I always find myself asking the question, do you mind if I help you now, please? So I prefer to go non-conscious. So leadership and modeling. Modeling, I'm using the term as it would be used in neurolinguistic programming, but it actually comes from biology. Small animals model the behavior of adult animals. It's an inbuilt evolutionary drive for survival, most likely. Because if you do what the adult animals, if you're a duck and you're a baby duck, you're a duckling, or a baby goose, in which case you'd be a gosling. How lovely. You would look to the adult ducks and the adult goosefers, to see what they do, because they have lived for longer than you have, and you literally, because they're bigger than you, look up to them. You look up to them to see what they do, and then you just do it. So if they waddle this way and say quack, 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 you probably should waddle this way and say quack, quack, quack. If they avoid that area over there, you probably should avoid it too. If they eat at this particular time of day, this particular thing, you should probably eat that too. You're always better off in evolutionary terms following the herd. This runs contrary to what you'll have heard me said in other videos, because I'm not talking in evolutionary terms. I'm talking about human behavior, and we really shouldn't follow the herd, because we're at a point in human history where the majority of people, and I do mean the overwhelming majority of people, are just doing the wrong things, as evidenced by the fact that they are miserable. Most people are miserable and completely defeated in their own lives. They won't tell you that, but they are. They're imprisoned, they're defeated, they're overwhelmed, they're stressed out, they're full of despair. They will posture in front of others because they're playing monkey power hierarchy games, but they're not happy. They're not tuned in. They're not living their best lives. They're not emotionally literate. They're not really fully functioning human beings, and they're pretending that they are for gains, for, to get narcissistic supply or money or something. They're after something. So in human terms, it's not a good idea at this point in the history to follow the herd. Usually, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is worth doing it. Most of the time it isn't. But in the animal kingdom, if you were suddenly born as a monkey or a duckling or a gosling, and you remembered what I'd said in this YouTube video, which would be a very strange experience for you, you should do what the other animals are doing, because it's raw survival. There's no ideology, there's no imagination, and there's no memory. Imagination and memory, two very important things, crucial differences between us and other animals that we share the planet with. Our imagination is vastly superior to even our most intelligent, closest relatives. And so is our memory. Vastly, vastly, vastly superior. There aren't any animals that come close. So modeling is important. Can you get a child to have boundaries when you do not have them? Can you get a child to brush their teeth when you don't brush yours? Can you get a child to not drink when you're drunk in front of them all the time? Can you get the child to understand the importance of sexual hygiene and discipline with their sexual behavior, a sort of a conscious approach to their sexual behavior, when you don't demonstrate any? And the answer to that question is yes. It is possible, but it's very hard. And the modeling that you're doing would be unnatural, intellectual, and sort of enforced from the top down through a hierarchical power dynamic where you say, just do as you're told, don't do as I do as I say, which runs contrary to the animal nature that we have. It really is not a natural thing for us to do. What we do naturally and unconsciously is we do what everybody else in the environment is doing, particularly the authority figures in our identified pack. So when I first started working in the schools, and I was working, as I said, with very naughty, stroppy, grumpy adolescents, I twigged early on because I wasn't very good at it. I'd come from a background of nightclub security. I'd worked a little bit in the probation service with some drug-addicted criminals, and then I was a taxi driver for a year, and then I started running my own chauffeuring company. And through some weird set of circumstances and basically other people bullying me into it because I didn't want to do it, I ended up working in the schools. But I sucked. And as depressed and lost as I was, I don't like to know that I suck at a job that I should be able to do. I was like, I have a good understanding of psychology. I was trained in NLP. I had done some performance work. I thought, I shouldn't suck at this. Let's figure this out. And I bothered to figure out how to do it. And the way that I did it was all through leadership and through role modeling. So if I wanted them to have a sense of humor and be calm, patient, and curious about themselves, human nature, and the course of their lives, I had to go there first. I am not a zealot for neurolinguistic programming. When you see people critiquing me and critiquing neurolinguistic programming, let me tell you, they are doing a kittenish clawing compared to the tigerish savagery that I could do to NLP, because I actually understand the subject and I actually have experience for a few decades now with the material and with its creators. I understand it. It is far from perfect, but it is far from useless. One of the things that one of the founders, Richard Bandler, says frequently is you go first. So if you're working with a client, whatever state you want them to go into, or whatever frame for their problem you want them to have, you must adopt that frame first, and they will follow. If they trust you, if you have rapport, if you have authority, they will follow where you go. Can you teach your children to have boundaries if you have none? Yes, you can. Theoretically, it's possible. You can enforce it. You can enforce artificial patterns of behavior. Artificial in this case because it's not authentic. You're telling them, like I said, brush your teeth, but I don't brush my teeth. Be careful who you choose to have sexual contact with, but I'm not or, eat a healthy diet, eat your vegetables and eat lean proteins or whatever, but I'm not going to do it. Exercise every day, but I'm not going to exercise every day. You can do it. It reminds me of an argument that we used to have frequently in the martial arts world, where we would have very, very fat, very, very out of shape instructors. And we go round the houses on this one and say, well, can you have fat, out of shape instructors who are teaching people things? And the argument we commonly come to, we'll look at the Olympic wrestling coaches of the top wrestlers in the world or the top boxers in the world. A lot of those guys are done. They are fat and out of shape. So can you train people to do something you're no longer capable of doing? Yes, again, it's theoretically possible, but you would probably want that fighter in a training camp surrounded competitively with boys and girls just like him with the same goals as him, where they would have some role models there who they would simply copy. So if there's no role model in the family unit, if there's nobody to follow, and you're just saying, please do the thing that I'm not doing, it's going to be weak. My suggestion here would be to do the easiest thing and the best thing for you and the best thing for your children, which is develop some boundaries and let them watch. Let them watch what daddy does with conflict. Let them watch what mummy does with conflict. As I said, it's non-conscious. Your kids may have a problem with you. They might not respect you. They might be mouthy with you. I've seen this time and again in the work that I do. You have divorces, people break up. 15-year-old Tommy is angry with mummy because he feels like she scared daddy away and he doesn't get to see his dad as much as he could. And dad's then what would you say, hyper-idealized, distant male figure who seems to be living his best life. And whenever I hang out with him, he's so cool and he's so fun. But, you know, he only has to be cool and fun like one day a week. If it can go the other way, it's not man bashing, woman bashing. I'm not playing that game here. It could be the other, the opposite sex parents. It could be mummy's not around, so I hyper idealize mummy, and I have to live with daddy who's so boring and has all these rules because he's the one who's packing my lunch and driving me to school every morning. And you get my point. So do the work first. Develop your own boundaries. Your life will become more fun. And your kids will follow you, even if they have a problem with you, even if they don't respect you, even if they have major beef with you, or you've had major behavioral problems before. You can't, none of us. Well, let me hit the controversial point that I wanted to make before I set up to record this video early on. We're all whinging right now about governments acting in hypocritical ways. And they're not, they're telling us to all wear masks and stay indoors, and then we find them not wearing masks and going to orgies or whatever these people do. And it's happened multiple times in multiple countries. It happened in the UK, it happened in America, it happened in the Czech Republic. I don't know, but it probably happened in Romania, it probably happened in Croatia, Canada, wherever. Well, your family unit is not intrinsically different as an organization, as a government, a corporation, a military unit, or a sports training facility. In that, it is a group of people with a commonly shared agenda moving in a certain direction. Even if you don't make that explicit and it's all implicit, that's still what you're doing. My advice, and the reason why I left the education system, is you should set an agenda. You should put it in words and say, this is what we're trying to do. Are we trying to be the healthiest, happiest, calmest human beings we can be, living our best lives? That sounds pretty cool to me. Let's do that. Let's say that's what we're doing. And let's let all of our behavior, all of our disciplines, all of our daily patterns and habits trickle down from that idea. It doesn't mean that everybody has to do the same thing. How that manifests for, this young man over here, the young brother in the family versus the older sister could be completely different. You still permit that freedom, but the principles are the same. You go do what you want to do, but make sure you're trying to be, whatever it was I just said that I already forgot, the happiest, most tranquil, most fulfilled human being you could possibly be. But you must state it openly and explicitly. This is why I left the education system. Nobody would tell me. Nobody would tell me why we were doing education. I was like, well, what's the purpose of education? Do you want factory workers? Do you want philosopher kings and philosopher queens? Do you want entrepreneurs? Do you want, I don't know, the next wave of brilliant, boundary breaking, trauma healing psychologists? What do you want? Tell me what you want, and I can train them for that. I'm really good at one thing, which is training people to do stuff. That's it. But you've got to tell me, and nobody would. Nobody could commit. It's like, well, we want them to do this, and we want them also to be like this, and we really want to pass exams so that we get the scores we need so we continue our funding. And I was like, I feel like Gregory Bateson looking at psychiatric psychiatric units here. Like, is this for the benefit of the child or the benefit of the institution? Because it seems to be for your benefit rather than for the benefit of the children. So, like, why are we doing what we're doing? Fix your own boundaries and then lead by example. Set an intent for the family unit and go, this is who we are, this is what we're doing. And you can even have that, sit down with the family and go, look, I know I've not been doing a good job of this. I know I've got my own stuff to deal with, and it's hard being given orders from people who are not doing what they're telling you to do. But I want what's best for you. I will do better. I'm going to try. I'm going to fail, but I'm going to try. So you teach your kids, like, life is not just a series of wonderful Disney-esque romantic comedy successes where everybody pats you on the bottom and claps you and tells you you're wonderful. No, some of it sucks. And when you want to get really good at something, it takes a really long time. However long you think it is, times it by 5. However much misery and suffering will be there along the way. You've no idea. You will suffer in ways that you're not even capable of imagining yet. Ha 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 ha. Laugh. Have a sense of humor, because it's going to suck. But if you want what you want, you can get there, but you'll fail a lot along the way. You're going to see me fail because you don't need me perfect. You just need me to lead the way. And this is how we do things. This is how we do what we do. In this family, this is how we move forward. Sometimes we make bad decisions. Sometimes we're going to screw up. Sometimes we're going to try and do things and we're going to fail. That's part of life, and we accept it with grace, perspective, and a sense of humor. I will now try and develop stronger boundaries, and you can copy me. But I'm looking at you, kid, and I can see you don't have good boundaries. And, I'm just worried. I'm worried that, like, things aren't going to work out well for you, because there are bad people out there, and you must learn to say no. I know you've watched me not say no. I know you've watched me let your mum walk all over you or all over me, and you've seen other people walk all over me. But I'm going to do better, and I really want you to do better. So let's have that conversation, and then you can have an open loop rather than just saying, don't do as I do as I say, which is, you can get results like that. You can, but they're weak results. Don't do as I do as I say. Just do as you're told. Why? Because I told you to. I mean, it's spirit-breaking communication. You're basically saying, be a robot, be a dummy, be stupid, do what people tell you to do thoughtlessly. When we're working with kids, and it's another slightly controversial statement, I didn't see a massive amount. I got some dog training because I was for a while I'd look after other people's dogs and their houses. And so I got some dog training. I got really into dog training, and I was like, you know what? This isn't all that different from how you train kids. It's context-based. So adult humans are very content-based. They'll be like, what sequence of words do I say to my child to get them to obey me and to just do what I want? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what the sequence is. I get this in schools because I was training kids, and I was training teachers and parents. I was teaching teachers how to teach kids, and I was teaching students how to learn. And they'd be like, what do you say to them? You've got a classroom of really naughty kids, and they're sat there listening to you rapt for 4 hours. How? And I go, I don't know. I can't tell you the magic formula. I can't tell you the words, but I present a compelling argument for why they should listen to me, how it advantages them, in the same way I was trained to do in sales training. And then I be the type of charismatic, motivated person I think they need me to be in order to do what it is I want them to do. That's it. I don't see why it would work any different in a family unit. If you want to be obeyed, you kind of need to be somebody to be looked up to. So is there a way around this that means that you don't have to develop your own boundaries and do your own work? I don't think so. I think you could get away with it, but the results would be weak. And if we just say to our children, do as you're told because you were told to do it, we're breeding the next generation of consumer morons who are just going to succumb to whatever psychological propaganda, political brainwashing, and rank marketing-based Satan's diarrhea consumerism is forced through their eyeballs and into their consciousness. And I think we've done enough. I think there's enough of that. I think we've had enough, right? So we don't want our kids to be that way. So never say to your kids, do as I say, don't do as I do. And never say to your kids when they ask you why they're doing something, because I said so. Just do as you're told. You're training them at the meta level, at the context level. You're not just training, you think you're just training them in the content. Well, I'm not just training them to obey authority figures. I'm training them to obey me. I've had parents say that to me, and I'm like, I'm sorry, mate, it doesn't work like that. You are an authority figure. You are conditioning them to obey you unquestioningly. So any authority figure, including husbands and wives, when they get married or when they have girlfriends and boyfriends, if they tell them to do something, they'll just do it because you train them to be brainless and obedient and non-confrontational and cowardly. Do we need more of that? Do we? I am not perceiving that we do. So develop your own boundaries, have a really clear, conscious sense of exactly what you want for them and what you want your family to be about and what you want life to be about, and share that with them. Tell them, like, when we don't want to be bombs, do we? It's really easy to be a loser. Look around you. Everybody's off the path. It's really easy to screw life up. Really easy. The easiest thing in the world. The only thing you have to do to screw your life up is go with the flow. The only thing you have to do to screw your life up is do what everybody else is doing. The only thing you need to do to turn your life into a catastrophe is just be normal. Be normal in the statistical sense. In the statistical sense, be the mean, median, or mode. Just be the average, and you will ruin your life, just like everybody else. Don't be normal, kids. Normal sucks. Put that on a t-shirt. Okay, folks, let's take some questions. Please keep it relevant to the topic at hand at first, and we can move into other stuff later on. So questions on boundaries or parenting, please. Listen, if Sam Vaknin can drink red wine in a video, I don't see why I can't have a little bit of gin and tonic. Just a touch. Cool. I've got many things to teach you. Okay, questions, please, guys. That's real talk. Thanks for sharing. Thank you. The Pam is here. The Pam. I'm going to make you a moderator, the Pam. I don't know how to do it from my phone, though. Sorry. I feel like I can't have healthy conversations with my parents because they always wipe out the "that's disrespectful" card. It's sad and annoying. Yeah, and it's lazy. It's lazy. So what you're saying is, anytime that I question anything that you're saying and don't just blindly obey, that's a gesture of disrespect. No, in fact, father, I think you'll find it's a gesture of respect because I'm respecting your intelligence and your ability to come up with a better answer for me. I'm going to teach you how to annoy your parents. They're like, you've been watching that Richard Grannon again. Bastard. Okay. Reginald is here. Jesus. All right, Reggie. So, folks, if you have a question, you can make it one sentence long and end in a question mark. Here we go. Dodota. Dodota. Detaro. How do you know while building boundaries, you don't go too far and therefore push good people away? But having boundaries should never be about pushing people away, and certainly not good people. That would not be a boundary. That would be like you're doing an impersonation of somebody with a boundary. So you're all stroppy and like, I'm telling you, and I'm not going to have this. No, sirree, Bob. Well, that's not a boundary. That's posturing. So there is a difference between doing things authentically and then just being, to use the horrible terminology of the radical leftists, performative. Logan says, I want your take on how do I have boundaries in the military? Well, if you're in the military and you're in the early phases of your training, part of your early training is to forego your personal boundaries. In fact, much of your early training is to forego your personal boundaries so that you develop collective boundaries. It's a very deliberate, conscious effort to break down individualism, because in a battlefield context, individualism can kill. We want collective, disciplined responses that are predictable, and we need obedience. So personal boundaries, yes, perhaps once you've worked your way up the ranks and you've been in for 10 years, you can have some again. But if you're at the bottom rung of the ladder, the last thing the military wants is for you to have personal boundaries. That's why you all sleep on top of each other and go poopy in front of each other. It's also it's a way of it's a reparenting process. It's where you get woken up in the middle of the night. Leanna says, is it more important to continue a civil relationship with father of child or tell him what I really think? I don't know. This is a decision that every individual needs to make on their own, based on their own experiences. Weigh up the pros and cons, weigh up the possible consequences of you having the super honest conversation. If the juice isn't worth the squeeze, then I recommend you don't do it. Hi, my children. Seriously? Let's shout louder. Speaking of boundaries. Hi, my children are adults trying to survive the aftermath of a narcissistic dad. How can I help them build up their boundaries as I'm learning to have them myself? It breaks my heart. I could get some tin pots and a brass band out here. That would be helpful. Well, you're going to have to really go through your own healing process in your own way, in your own time. And then as you get better and your boundaries improve, via a kind of psychological osmosis, they will also get better because you are their role model as a functioning adult in the world. So they're looking to you to see how you cope with this. So do the work as normal, do the work as it's laid out. There's a YouTube channel called Fortress Mental Health Protection System that teaches you step by step exactly how to recover from narcissistic abuse and the cluster of symptoms that typically come with that. What are we banging? Just silence here before. Total silence. I'm going to have to put somebody in the seat. Okay. Question: should my future children always be monitored around my family because of my family's poor boundaries? Yes. Yes. If you know that your family unit is toxic in that way, you have to be very, very careful with how much time your children are spending with them and in what context. It's very hard for children to have, like, children under the age of 15 to not succumb to whatever's going on there. I mean, seriously, what are we doing? How to build personal boundaries, says Growing Girl Z. It's plates. He's putting them away. Probably the best place for you to learn how to develop personal boundaries is I have a course called Summoning the Self. It's out now. It's available from SpartanLifeCoach.com. I can't teach you inside of like a 5-minute answer on a YouTube live stream how to develop personal boundaries. It takes time. If you really have none, you would be looking at least a year of quite hard graft, at least, if you really have none. Look at it this way, my friend, and don't be discouraged. You can do it. I know that you can do it because I did it myself. But when it comes to coaching and therapy, if we look at a problem and we say, here's a thing that should have been given to me in childhood and wasn't at all, then that would be hard to acquire in adulthood. But we're not just saying that. We're saying not only was it not given to me, but any attempt on my part to grow those boundaries was smashed down. We've got a real job on our hands, and it's hard to develop as an adult via an online course or a book what should have been given to you and what should have been developed in childhood. Hard, bordering on impossible. Like, you would need to be committed to making that happen, and you would need to be committed with ferocity. You would have to be thinking like, I am going to make this happen no matter what. Sure. We should have an interview with him. Why do you hate those plates so much? Let's discuss. He was told in not very polite language to do a thing that he did not want to do, and he was having a little bit of an adult temper tantrum and took it out on the plates. They had done nothing to him that I could see. Is there a number I can call for plate abuse? Can anybody tell me in the comments? Alex No Name asks, is it possible to build up stronger, effective boundaries when you're an adult? Yes, but it takes time and effort. Is there any difference between the boundaries men and women must build? No, not in their essence, in their manifestation, in how you manifest your boundaries. It would depend on your context. It would depend on your sexuality. But the fundamental principles are never different. They're never different. Human is a human is a human is a human. So you need to, first of all, value the thing that you've put a boundary around, whatever it is. It could be your house, it could be a car, or it could be you. If you don't value the thing that you're putting a boundary around, you're engaging in a kind of, again, it's performative, symbolic, ritualistic, masturbatory act. You must value the thing first. So if you have no self-value, no point. I wouldn't even bother trying, because what are you doing? You're like putting a fence around dog poop. I mean, why would you even do that? So the self-worth must be there first, which is why you must work with the emotional literacy first and foremost. You need to have cleared a degree of your own personal trauma, especially if it's the type of trauma that leaves you feeling like you're worthless. You must do that work first. And then the boundaries will start to come quite naturally. You will naturally defend the things that you value. For example, I like to use this example because it reminds us of how, the good elements of human nature. Imagine you were with a child, and it was either your child or your nephew or your niece, and they were 4, and somebody walked up to them and spat on them or swatted them across the head. You probably would punch that person in the face before you'd even send a signal from your brain to your hand. You would just notice that your fist had connected with somebody's jaw without thinking about it. Consider that the child is not yours or a niece or a nephew, but that the child is in your care. But they're like a friend's child. Same result. You'd still punch that person in the face for what they did to that child. Consider that they're not actually with you. They're a stranger. A stranger's kids, and the stranger have left their kids, or they've lost them, and the kid's just there in the shopping mall, and somebody does that to the kid in front of you. Same result. You still just punch them in the face. Consider that they are of a vastly different racial origin or cultural origin to you, or whatever origin you like, or whatever boundary you like. Most, the overwhelming majority of half-sane, decent people would still go very far out of their comfort zone to protect an innocent child from being damaged. Why? Because as human beings, unless we have really rare personality disorders or very, very serious problems, we value children. Why? Because we're just genetically coded to. I mean, that's our future. You wouldn't stand by and let somebody do that to a child in front of you, typically. So nobody had to teach you to do that. You didn't have to go to a martial arts class for that. Nobody had to teach you that letting children be beaten up in front of you is wrong. You just do it. You just do it because so we've got the sequence correct. The sequence is you already valued the child first, and then your response, well, you don't know what your response is. You would never think about it. You would just find yourself taking action non-consciously. So we're back to non-conscious action again. But you must value the thing first before you try and set the boundary. So if you raise your value, you will set more boundaries for yourself quite naturally, quite unconsciously. Okay. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. Any more questions, guys? Please have them under a question mark. Okay. Questions about boundaries, please, or parenting, I would also accept. Abusers never allow you to have boundaries. That's why we never had any. This is true. Because your boundaries are running completely contrary to the abuser's agenda. See how quiet it's gone? Can you hear the birds? Isn't that pretty? It's lovely, isn't it? That's how it was before I started streaming, before we had Plategate. Before summoning the self, must I do the emotional literacy first? Yes. What's the difference? For a full explanation of both of those concepts, you can search this channel and there are videos describing to you what the summoning the self course is, and multiple videos describing the emotional literacy exercise. It's free, by the way, the emotional literacy exercise. Just go to Fortress Mental Health Protection System and you will find the tutorial on emotional literacy there. Very, very easy, very, very straightforward, and easy to do. Boom, boom, boom. Any questions on boundaries? Sabrina asked, do you know any good practices for enforcing boundaries in a meaningful way? Okay, so I'll end on this question. I would rather, guys, that you didn't think in terms of enforcing boundaries. So what this does is it externalizes the locus of control. So if you think, what do I need to do to make a boundary happen? What do I need to do to make a boundary happen? And you're enforcing it, it suggests that something slightly unnatural is going on and it didn't come naturally and unconsciously from you. I would really want you to try and do this non-consciously and naturally. So you never feel like you're quote unquote enforcing a boundary, which is the verb enforce implies that you're consciously doing something. If you have boundaries, there won't really be that much conscious thought there. Again, we're back to value. The thing that you want to set a boundary around, you must actually value, and you can't fake it. That's why boundaries is such a wonderful topic, and we could talk. You could have a whole channel, like 500 videos, just talking about boundaries, because it's key. It's key to everything, and it really touches on every element of life. If you value it, and if you value it authentically and unconsciously, you will naturally assert your boundaries. So rather than looking at how to assert boundaries or how to enforce boundaries, authentically value the thing first, whatever it is. You want to set a boundary around your time. I have a friend who keeps trying to waste my time, who keeps trying to take my time. So you need to authentically increase the value you place on your time. The brainwashing, advertising, propaganda keeps trying to hack my consciousness, and I really, really value my awareness and my attention and my consciousness, and I want them to. I want to assert a boundary against that. I remember when I cracked this one years ago. I was like, I find this is really getting to me. I don't want advertising just running inside of my head. So I just focused on how much I valued. Meditation helps with this. How much I valued my own consciousness and my own awareness. And then I found that I was that weird guy in the cinema, when the adverts run at the beginning, and I just put my fingers in my ears and closed my eyes. Because I was like, no, I'm not accepting this garbage on like a huge screen with, really high definition sound that shakes the seats. That's there trying to sell me some dumb car or a mobile phone program or some stupid thing in the most stupid way imaginable. So I would just sit there and my friends would be like, you weirdo. Well, I don't care. I'm not giving them my consciousness. I will not let adverts play anywhere near me. I just will not do it. With YouTube, I bought YouTube Premium. I never get adverts. Netflix, there's no adverts on there. The only time I'm forced to listen to adverts is if I get a taxi in some city and in between songs, they let the adverts play as loud as the music. And I'm like, no wonder your life sucks. Can you not tell that this is not music right now? This is not for you. This is somebody trying to set, and they don't turn it down. They leave it as loud. Never do that. Value your attention. As soon as you start to value your time and your attention, you'll naturally assert a boundary around it. I really value peace and quiet. I don't know what all of this hullabaloo is, but now I'm going to end this live stream. It's at 39 minutes and 11 seconds. I'm happy with it. I hope that you are happy with it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much for your time and your attention, your questions, and I look forward to speaking to you again very, very soon indeed. Cheerio.